All right.
We good?
I'm good.
Man.
All right.
All right. Here we go. Hey, welcome to the Postured.Podcast. I'm Jesse.
I'm Kim.
It's my beautiful wife, Kim. We are your hosts. Episode 1. We are here.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. This is 7 years in the making.
We're actually time traveling right now.
We are time traveling.
We're time traveling. So this is your past speaking to you.
This is your past.
January 2025.
Yep.
Some 2024 revelations.
Yes. We just been busy recording episodes.
Yep.
And we have been busy recording episodes up to this point, but this is going to be our first episode. It's at episode 1. And the topic came up of shame, because that was the first thing that we talked about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So backstory, we had this idea of we had this idea to do podcasting 7 years ago when we first moved here to San Antonio. And we recorded our first, I guess if you want to call it an episode, on an iPad in a small walk-in closet at our old house. Well, 2 houses ago. And we talked about shame. And I don't think I ever listened to that episode. Or I don't think I ever listened to that recording.
I don't want to.
I don't want to either. Yeah, I don't want to listen to that recording. Because, I don't know. But I can guarantee you that this episode is going to be so much more better than that episode. So, and you won't know because I don't think we'll ever post it. I don't think we have access to it anymore. That iPad's broke. I think we still have the iPad. But I know the screen's like shattered and it's just ready to be thrown in the trash.
Probably.
Yeah.
All right.
But shame.
Shame.
Shame. What is shame?
Shame in the game.
No shame in the game.
Mm-hmm.
No shame in the game.
I don't know, right? What is shame?
I know on first thought, shame is. So I see it 2 ways, right? Shame is something you feel, right? So it's a feeling you get.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe when you do something wrong or you do something that's not acceptable, or there's an expectation of you that you don't measure up to, and that feeling you get when you're just not, when you don't measure up, right?
So inadequate.
So inadequate, but also you can also shame somebody, right? So shaming somebody is also another side of the coin not another side of the coin, but on the same lines of shame.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people feel shame because they are shamed by somebody.
Yeah.
Right? So someone shames you, and in turn, you feel shame.
Yeah.
You feel ashamed. And that typically leads to you walking in shame throughout your whole life.
Mm-hmm. So throughout your whole life. So you're saying from the get-go.
From the get-go.
So from childhood.
From childhood. Yeah, we'll get into that a little later. But
Yeah.
Yeah, from childhood. And I think as adults we realize that we have shame.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to someone the other day, and it's like we only, and this was brought up, and it's like we only look at the events in our adult life that deal with shame, right? But we don't ever take a look back in the past, like go to childhood, and kind of find out or identify when was the first time you felt shame, right? And so as our discussion progresses, where we'll get to that. We'll get to, shame as a child.
Yeah.
Right?
But
Shame in your teenage years.
But you mentioned the feeling, right? The feeling of shame.
The feeling of shame.
The feeling.
Right.
So what would you say are some feelings of shame? So if somebody's listening, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, I don't think I deal with a lot of shame.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty confident
Mm-hmm.
in who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are some, identifiers as shame?
Well, to define shame, if you look it up in the dictionary, it's a painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by the consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior.
Okay.
Some words that are synonymous with shame are embarrassment, discomfort, guilt, remorse. We talked about inadequacy earlier. But yeah, so humiliation, right? Being humiliated, distressed, embarrassed, rejected. That's another good one.
Abandoned, hurt, grieved.
Yes, absolutely. Those are some good words.
Afflicted. Here's a good one. Judged.
Judged. Yeah, you can't judge me. Only God can judge me.
Oppressed.
Okay.
Despised.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, here's a good one for men.
What?
Disrespected.
Disrespectful. Yeah, as a man, that's like one of the things that a man does not want to feel is disrespected, especially by his wife.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Reminds me of that Mulan, the dragon. It's like dishonor to you, dishonor to your family, dishonor to your cow.
Yes,
Okay.
all those words, yes, can definitely are feelings of, or can lead to shame.
Yeah.
Right, or feelings of shame. Just to add to that feeling of inadequacy, I researched this and it said that a feeling of inadequacy that can be caused by internalized negative self-beliefs, such as feeling like you don't conform to social standards or live up to your own expectations.
Yeah.
Shame can also be triggered by personal insecurities, secrets, mistakes, or perceived flaws.
So, in short, like something that you see is just not good enough.
Yes.
So I'm inadequate. Something in me.
You don't measure up.
Yeah, something. I see something. I believe something in me, or it was spoken into me, or through comparison.
Yes.
Like I am absolutely not enough, or I'm not good enough.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of times it is also a result of just unrealistic expectations, things that you kind of just make up in your head.
Yeah.
Right.
You almost like idolize.
Idolize, yeah. You maybe idolize other people, or you're trying to live up to expectations that no one has really placed on you.
Yeah.
You kind of do it to yourself.
Almost like even idolize a belief of who you want to be.
Yep. Yeah.
Right? Like if I hate myself so much because I can never compare, like you can almost idolize like, all right, well, if I do this, right, then that means I'm less inadequate. And so I idolize, like for me, I idolize a skinny Kim. I do. And as much as I'm trying like not to,
right,
it just is what creeps up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, no, that's true. So shame. I mean, inadequacy, feeling inadequacy, unrealistic expectations. And so when you think of it, a lot of these feelings and beliefs, right, about yourself, that is like your identity. It's an identity that people carry.
Yeah.
Right? It's an identity that people, sometimes they don't even know that they're walking in shame. Right? It's just they've been like this for so long that this is just who they are.
Yeah.
Right? And honestly, that's just not a way to live. It's not a way to live, because if you walk in shame and that's your identity,
yeah,
man, you will always be miserable. You'll always be sad,
Yeah.
depressed, anxious, right? There's a lot of feelings that or things that attach themselves to shame, right? And I can only imagine walking your whole life in shame,
Yeah.
and being stuck in bondage to that, and it having a grip over your life. And and I hope that after this episode, that whoever's listening out there maybe can hear something,
Yeah.
through our conversation, maybe something that's gonna help set them free from that shame, and that you don't have to walk in shame for the rest of your life. There is a way out of being in bondage to this, and so we'll get into that. And it's such good news, because I think there are people out there that maybe they don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I hope and I pray that this episode brings brings shame to light, and people can really take it in, and honestly, do the research themselves as well. I mean, don't just rely on us.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just here to give you what has been revealed in our heart, but it's also up to you to go do your research, do your reading, go through your word, go through the Bible, get intimate with God, because we're just seed planters. We're just planting that seed. Maybe you've never thought about shame, and like I said, I hope that after this episode, that people can benefit from it.
Yeah.
Can benefit from it, and man, just people set free.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get into it. So I have here, earliest memories of shame. And remember when we were talking about this episode and kind of we're, getting our notes together, just, on the topic, I had to ask myself, okay, when did I first feel shame? When was that? And I go back all the way to when I was, I want to say maybe 7 or 8 years old. We were still living in Guam, and one of my best friends, Matthew, God bless his soul, rest in peace. He passed away, a while back. But anyway, we were best friends. We did everything together, right? We were roaming up and down the village together.
Yeah.
We did a lot. And one of the things that we loved to do was skateboard. And I remember he was good at it. Like, he was great. And I wasn't that good at skating. I could do basic stuff, but as we start to advance and grow our skill set, he caught on to it faster, right? He caught on to it faster. And I remember there was a specific trick. Well, there were several tricks that he can do, but there was a couple specific ones that I could do half of it, but I couldn't land it.
Yeah.
And I remember he started off the same way, but then he started to catch on, and he just started to just be super fluid with it, right? And I remember getting so jealous, and I was like, man, I can't do that. I can't do it, and I immediately felt, thinking back as I relive those moments, I immediately felt like I wasn't good enough. Like I was inadequate. And mind you, he never, talked down to me or anything like that. Didn't tell me like, oh, you suck. Like, you're not as good as me. Like, he never did any of that.
Yeah.
Right. It was the jealousy in me. And I put this unrealistic expectation on myself, and told myself that I wasn't as good as him. Right. And I remember that my, I guess, self-defense mechanism at the time, to combat that feeling of shame or inadequacy, or not good enough, was to talk down to him, right? And I remember teasing him about something, and it was just out of nowhere. It wasn't like he started something. I would just like talk crap to him, like just tell him dumb things. And I remember one time, like, he got fed up and like he wanted to fight me.
Yeah.
But I was bigger than him.
Yeah.
And so I remember like he was like I was telling him some dumb stuff, and then he just got pissed and he came at me, and then like I remember grabbing him and like I just held him in like a bear hug, and I was like, okay, stop. Like, you need to calm down. I remember like looking, because we were in front of my house, and I was like looking at my house like, shit, I hope my grandma don't see me. I hope my grandma don't see this. But it was that moment, or it was during that time that, as I reflected back, I was like, man, that was the first time I ever felt shame, like, inadequate.
Yeah.
I couldn't measure up to something.
Yeah.
And so, and like I said, my self defense, or the way I reacted and coped with it, was, out of just being dumb, man. Like I deflected, I brought things up to him, or I made up things that weren't even true, but I was projecting it on him, right? And that was my way of making myself feel better.
Yeah.
In the
so
feeling
out of
shame.
your shame, you shamed him.
Yeah. Out of my shame, I shamed him.
So misery loves company.
Absolutely.
And so you wanted him to some way, shape, or form be smaller. So you wanted to paint him in a smaller picture.
Yeah.
To make yourself feel better for
Right.
your inadequacies.
Right. Exactly. Yep. And it's crazy how that just, as I grew up, how now experiencing more life, right? How like you just start to experience different things, and how shame comes in different ways. It brought me to my teenage years, and I remember moving from Guam to California, and where we lived in California, when my family finally got a house, it wasn't like the nicest house. Like it wasn't the nicest house. It was rough, and then the car that we got, it was not the nicest looking car. Like the car was old. It was I think it was older than me. But the school that I went to, though, a lot of the kids that went there in the neighborhood that it was in was a nice neighborhood. And I had the friend group that I had at the time were pretty, I don't know if they were rich, but I knew their families were well off, established in their careers, had a nice house, drove nice cars, Lexus, right? And I remember feeling like I feel like I was poor compared to them. And I would always tell my mom, like when she would drop me to school, I was like, Mom, just like, don't even pull up in front of the school. Just drop me back here. Drop me far, like on this block, and I'll just walk up. I remember my mom used to mess with me. She's like, no, I'll drop you at the front. I'll pull all the way up to the front of the school. They was like, no, Mom, like just drop me the back gate, or drop me a block away, and I'll just walk in, And it was one of those things that I was like, man, like my family doesn't have what their families have, And so, in that way, I would rather, not be, I would rather me go to like their house, or go to meet them at the mall, or, I would rather have not shown them my situation. I would rather, hide that.
Yeah.
I mean, as an adult, as a parent, looking back, man, I'm grateful. I'm super grateful, because now I consider, man, my parents, we moved you know, with they moved their whole family, you know, to another state, mind you, away from an island that, you know, island life to stateside life is totally different. Right. And so I take into those things all into consideration. Now I'm like, man, I was blessed. Like I look now and have so much gratitude for my parents. You know, mom and dad, I love you so much. I appreciate everything you've done for us.
I love you too.
Yeah.
I was about to start asking some questions.
You know, and so I'm so grateful for them. Because looking back now, I'm like, man, like they did what they had to do to put a roof over our head, right? And put, you know, and to get some kind of transportation.
Yeah.
You know, and as a kid, I was so, I mean, kids in general can be so selfish, and you're just like, you know, they want what their friends got.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't consider the sacrifices that their parents have to make, you know, to get them the things that they already do have.
Yeah. So it's never good enough.
It's never good enough.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, it's crazy. I'm thinking about this right now. It's like, I wonder if that played in a part into me becoming an adult, to where I wanted nice things. Yeah. I'm thinking about that right now. It's not even in my notes.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about it right now. It's like, man, you know how you say, like, I want my kids to have a better life. You know, I want my kids to have a better life than I had growing up. I'm not saying my life was terrible and horrible, right? But, you know, I think growing up and putting so much value in material things, right, because of the friend group that I decided to befriend. You know, they had, you know, they had money, and they were well off, and they had the nice house. And it's like, man, though, the emphasis, right, and the value that you place on those things, not even realizing it. So when you become an adult, you're like, you know, I want those things for my kids. I don't want my kids to have to, you know, I don't want my kids to have to tell me, hey, drop me off, you know, at the, you know, at the street, and I'll walk into school.
So this can play like two ways too. Like, just thinking on it.
Yeah.
So from a parent's perspective, you don't want your kids to feel that kind of shame.
Yeah.
So in a way, it feels protective.
It does feel protective.
It feels protective that my kids don't have to feel this way.
Right.
Now, could it also be that you don't want to feel that shame too? That maybe there is like still an inadequacy that is still in the healing process, right?
Yeah.
That if you don't provide this, if they end up feeling shame, it's your fault.
Oh, yeah.
That's like, good. As a father, as a provider.
Right.
Like, I have to do all these things. I have to believe I'm a good dad. Because if my kids start portraying anything else, like, I may initially get mad at them or, you know, react to them.
Right.
But internally, I'm reacting to that shame and that inadequacy coming right back up.
That's good.
All right.
That's good.
That is good.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's a good observation, because I didn't even think about that.
I didn't either.
You know, and I, you know, my notes here, I put, you know, like, how do men deal with shame? And it's, you know, sometimes we take on an identity and we make ourselves bigger than what we really are. You know, we make ourselves, you know, we portray ourselves in a light where it's, you know, what we're portraying is not really who we are inside.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and so, yeah, like we can say untruthful things to build up our reputation or our credibility. Right. So it's like, you know, I'm going to buy the nice car.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to buy this, whatever, X amount of dollars. You know, this car costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I could barely afford this.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, I one, right, maybe I don't want my kids to get dropped off in a beater car, you know. And two, it's like, how are people going to see me if I drive this beater car? You know? And so yeah, no, that's a good observation.
Right? Because you're trying to take your identity and you're seeing your inadequacy. You're seeing something that's not good, and that's something that's played from the get-go, right? And you're still trying to do something to make yourself believe, right?
Yeah.
Something different.
Right. That's true.
Is it true?
No, it's true.
It's true. Is it true for you?
I think, yeah, there's some truth to that. There's some truth to that. There's some truth to that. I ain't even gonna lie. Yeah. And I think I would say just thinking back too is like, man, like how much you can put yourself in a hole too.
Yeah.
Just trying to live a lifestyle that's not even you.
Yeah.
That's not even, like, yeah.
Do you still feel like you're in a hole?
No.
No.
No, I don't think I'm in that spot anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm in that spot. I think, like I said, with this new nature, right, which we'll cover here in a little bit, you understand that first and foremost, right, we live in a fallen world, right? We live in a fallen world, and that I think it's not a matter of if, it's when, that shame comes.
Yeah.
Right? When it comes, because we're all broken people. At some way, or at some time, shame is, a situation or an event was going to come your way, and shame is just knocking at your door. I think that's what the enemy uses.
Yeah.
Uses shame and trauma.
Yeah.
Right? As fuel.
Yeah.
Right? To carry his agenda out.
And to condemn you.
To condemn you, yeah, absolutely.
Because that's what it does.
It does, right? And a lot of the time it starts at such a young age. And that's why it's so important that we can help our kids navigate through life.
Yeah.
Right? I think if there's never no guidance for our children as they grow and experience this thing, because we can't protect them from everything.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to experience, whether it's under this house or outside, they're going to experience something that's going to, it can be traumatic, right? Or it can be, something at school, and something that, they experience maybe with friends or even family, that can lead to shame, right? And if we don't communicate with them and if we don't guide them through these things, how they can grow up and carry that shame as an identity into their adult years. And so, yeah, it's an important, it's important that we identify, first reflect, and then, identify when, you first felt shame as a child, and how that kind of just snowball, into an adult, into your adulthood years.
Yeah.
And that we have to understand that it doesn't always have to be that way, and if we subscribe to a new identity, right? How we can live in freedom from that.
Yeah.
And that's why the gospel is such a beautiful thing, because, in my opinion, that is the cure. It's the cure. The good news is the cure for shame.
Yeah.
It's the cure for shame. And so, yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into what shame, like, let's look biblically, right? So biblically, when was the first instance of shame?
Before I even get to the Bible, because I believe like there's going to be listeners, watchers, whatever, because we're connected in both worlds. We were not always Christians.
Yep.
Even if we were born and raised Catholics.
Yep.
Majority of our life has been connected to a non-Christian worldview, non-Christian world.
Yep.
And so, we speak on this because shame goes whether you believe in God or not.
Yep.
And so we only speak on this in hopes that you hearing the good news, hearing the history of what you feel, that it can set you free from the condemnation that you were already born into. So whether or not you believe in God, know that there are things that have been set before your life, will be there after your life, but that there is a hope.
Yeah.
And so that's what I want to get into is the hope for the one who is listening, I don't know, maybe just out of relationship with us, out of support.
Yeah.
And so far what you've said has resonated in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
That there is hope.
Yeah.
And you can continue to go on the way you're doing it. But I pray that this part plants a seed into our friends and family that are feeling hopeless. All right. So, excuse me, I don't have my laptop. I am write it down in Scribble Scrabble.
You do have a laptop.
I do have a laptop,
No,
but
that's
this
what
is
works best for you.
This is my study.
I'm techie.
You are a techie.
I'm a techie.
You are a techie. And so where does shame first come up? What's funny is that the first mention of shame is not. It was when God made Adam and woman, right? They were both made naked, meaning they were made in an innocence and a complete trust in God. So they felt no shame. And so where shame really comes in is after, the serpent comes into the story. And the conversation happens between him and Eve, and she ate the fruit, gave the fruit to Adam. He ate, and all of a sudden their eyes were opened. And once their eyes were opened, they realized they were not naked, or they were naked.
Yep.
And so that innocence has been wiped away. And so from being naked, right, they saw that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. Little tiny things to cover your chichis and your hoo-hoos and your cha-chas. And but
said, whoa, what is this?
So they were born naked.
Yep.
Felt, and I underlined that one. They felt no shame. They ate, and they saw when their eyes were open, they saw something not good. There's the inadequacies, right? And then they took it upon themselves to recreate or make fig leaves, and loincloths, something to cover themselves. So out of what they saw, they felt something where they felt that they needed to cover. And so when they heard the Lord come through the garden, what did they do?
They hid. Yep.
Why would they hide? Out of what? What feeling?
Shame.
Shame or fear?
Fear.
Sorry, the word I was coming from was fear.
Yes.
And so they heard him coming. Mind you, they've had relationships.
Yes.
A relationship with the Lord, very close one. And so they hid from him out of fear. And when God called out for Adam again, he came out, and then he blamed woman. Like, look at this woman.
He said,
you gave me.
He said, the woman you gave me.
The woman you gave me.
He said, come on, God.
You said she was a gift. Now look at the mess she made.
She helping me sin.
Like, I don't even know what just happened, God. Like, I know what you told me not to do, but because of her, I did it.
Yeah.
And when God asks a woman what happened, she responds, and she responds acknowledging deception. And so what Well, I'll go into that later. So she responds out of deception.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that comes the curse. God is saying, all right, you did this, man. And so now you're both going to have to feel the curse. You're going to have to feel the weight of this action, this regrettable action. And then God does something after that.
What does he do?
He clothes them. So he sees that they saw something and they thought, oh man, this is not good. Let's go ahead and cover ourselves. And he saw that it was inadequate. Even what they saw, they didn't understand. They didn't understand how to clothe themselves, but he clothed them adequately. And he saw their new nature and drove them out. And so he drove them away from him. There's now this new separation from God. And anything, when you're separated from your father or someone you love, is this feeling of
abandonment. Yeah.
And so shame, right? Shame it's an attack. It's an attack that just stems from fear.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the root.
Yep, it stems from fear. And I love that when I was doing just my word studies on shame and how it comes up in different places. There's this one definition in the Bible and I love it because I'm like, ooh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But it describes shame as a deceived hope. And then that just makes it all kind of like come together. Because from this deception, right, this deceived hope from the beginning, with Eve, she did something, therefore regretted her action. So like you were saying in the beginning, right, shame can play different forms, but a lot of it is this deceived hope in something good, right? Out of your fear, out of your shame, out of your inadequacies, there's this deceived hope that you can probably do something for yourself to be less inadequate,
right?
To be less hopeless, to be more of this or more of that. And from that, right, we're going to end up doing things out of shame or out of deceived hope.
Yeah.
And when that stuff falls short, right, a lot of us can, there's people out there that can relate. Like there's a lot of shame when you fail.
Yeah.
Right? Like there was this hope. I had this hope, especially when we were younger. I had all these hopes and dreams. Like I thought I was going to be famous by now and skinny.
You and the skinny thing.
I know. But this deceived hope, and then it's this regrettable action, right? Of following this. And it's almost like a shame attack. And so it's like you're playing between both worlds, probably simultaneously.
Yeah.
And it's like just this repeated cycle.
Yeah.
And so, when I was looking up shame and I was just looking through all of it, you would see a lot of the word shame come up in Psalm with David.
Yeah.
And, but David takes on a new, at least his actions portray a different way of handling his shame.
Yeah.
It's not that David didn't feel everything that you were describing before about the feelings of shame.
Yeah.
It's also the same feelings that happened with Adam and his line. But David was feeling all of these things of being attacked and being abandoned. And he does it, right? He doesn't deny it. But whatever he needs to do, worship, sing, dance, pray, cry out, he does everything to try to remain in the presence of God. And so he does that by remembering him.
Right.
And so although David's feeling all of these attacks of shame, he's feeling the sorrows of shame, he is purposefully remembering who God is throughout all of it. And he's calling out to God in all of these different ways to come out and remember him and come for him and just be in his presence. And if anything, it was shameful if God forgot about him. So he says, God, like, this is who you are. This is what I'm feeling. but remember me. Like, don't forget about me.
Yeah.
Because that's shameful. I do not want to be separated from you.
Right.
I don't want to be separated from your presence.
Yeah.
No matter what's going on, who is against me.
Yeah.
God, I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to worship you. I'm going to be obedient to you. Even if he's falling short.
Right. Which he did.
He fell short.
Yeah, he fell short.
He fell short in the stick.
Yeah, that was the one thing that he said after, he had his incident with Bathsheba, got her husband killed. Bathsheba, she was already pregnant, and she finally gave birth, but then Nathan the prophet told David that he was gonna lose, like his baby was gonna die.
Yeah.
Right, and sure enough, that came to pass. And I remember, if I can recall correctly, David told Nathan, I don't know if he told Nathan or he was talking to God directly, but he said, as long as your presence doesn't leave me. Right, and so just the importance, like even in David's iniquity, right, which was shameful, right, a shameful thing that he did, and I'm sure he felt shame.
Oh yeah.
Right, but the belief in the father that David had, and the trust in the father that David had, that the father could renew him and restore him.
Yeah.
And that he couldn't do it any other way, but only with the presence of God.
Absolutely.
On the next episode of the Postured Podcast.
Good and evil, he said, although they know of this thing,
Yeah.
but they do not understand.
Right.
Without that understanding, you can be deceived again. Without that you will believe good is evil and evil is good.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, so I tore someone down, made myself feel better, right? And
which is a delusion.
And it satisfied the flesh. It's like, oh, that felt good.
Yeah.
When really that was bad.
Yeah.
Right? Then it's almost like you teach yourself, like, oh, dang, I can do that more and more and more because it feels good now.
Like shame has this thing, right, of it drives you to avoidance. Like, so you'll do whatever you need to do to avoid feeling this shame.
Ooh, yeah.